Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show.
And ladies and gentlemen, you are experiencing the Tom Kelly Show. I'm here with arguably one of the most powerful women in New York City comedy. Also a brilliant comedian who started a little later than other people. A woman who I've wanted to have on the podcast for a while, not just because she's been nice to me for the last year or two of my career, but also because I find her story amazing. Felicia Madison. She was a successful actress at certain points in her life. She is a mom. She has a great family life. And then all of a sudden, she picked up stand-up comedy. At the moment in time when there are moments where I'm thinking about dropping it. And if this podcast is about people who are doing good things with transitions in life, I think Felicia has a story that I may or may not know that I want to hear. So I want to thank you for finally doing this. I guess we should own this, that your comedy club, the West Side Comedy Club, is down the block from my apartment, and you didn't realize how close I lived.
I can't believe it. Now I'm going to come here.
Well, this could be the green room. How great would that be? We have a green room. It's just,
I've been looking for a green room. That's great.
you know, that's part of why I moved into the city. Like you live on what, the Upper East Side?
Yes.
And I guess let's get right into the real thing, because at one point you were calling yourself the real life Mrs. Maisel, and that was a hook to get you press.
Yeah,
and it did get you press.
Well, first let's take a step back and say, very generous of you to say I started a little later than most people.
Okay, I get scared with numbers.
A lot later than most people.
Can I ask you what age you were when you started stand-up comedy?
I was 50.
Okay, pause, because I love the name of your special. Right. Because I didn't realize how old you were. I thought you were my age or a year younger. Yeah, I had you at, I'm 47. I had you at 47.
I love it. I'll take it.
And then you dropped the real number. Let's see if the kids can do the math. What's the name of your special?
45 Years a Woman. It's the anniversary of my bat mitzvah.
Which happens for you crazy Gentiles at 13.
At 2.
At 2. There you go. So you started stand-up at 50.
Yes.
I've met your husband.
Yes.
He's a nice guy.
I'll keep him.
Okay, you keep him, and you're in a happy marriage. He loves you and loves what you're doing. What made you, at the age of 50, say, I want to do this dirty thing that 20-year-olds do? And I'm owning my own age, but like, I mean, for real, like there are moments where I go, why the hell do I want to still be going from bar to bar, club to club, performing for audiences sometimes of thousands and sometimes of 3 people? Yeah, there are moments where I wonder why I want to do it. What made you want to do it?
Well, I think I'll speak for most women, or maybe I'll just speak for myself. Your mom, you're always looking for something to do. Anyone in life, the whole concept of having it all is impossible. You know, people that work and have kids, they don't have it all. Moms that stay at home don't have it all. But I was always searching for something. I was always a little frustrated. I always wanted something more. And every year I came up with a different idea, like crazy. The one thing that's really taking off now that like everyone used to make fun of me was I wanted to do temporary tattoos.
That's big with the kids now.
And it's like, my friends would say to me, you could take the girl out of New Jersey, but you can't take New Jersey out of the girl because of but they're like real tattoos that you put on, they stay. And so it's a very big business now because I love tattoos, but I think my husband would leave me if I got one.
Wait, now that's kind of crazy for a minute here. So you were in the temporary tattoo business.
No, I wasn't. I wanted to.
You thought about
it. I was thinking about it. So these are like a lot of different things that I kind of looked into.
Okay. I mean,
and then I have a friend who is an Upper East Side male in the business, and he does stand up. And
are you allowed to say who?
Yeah, David Moore.
Okay.
You know David Moore?
I don't know David Moore.
So I always admired him. I always thought it was great, and I always thought it was something I wanted to try. Unbeknownst to everyone, and everyone that hears that I'm doing this will all say, wow, I never thought you were funny, including my mother. But I did, and I always just thought it was something I wanted to try.
Well, and listen, my family says the same thing, and I always feel like you shouldn't be funny at home because you're mean. You don't want to be mean. Your kids are nice.
Right.
I think I've met 2, if not all 3 of your kids. Right, you have 3?
I have 3.
Okay, yeah, I think I've met your...
And probably not the little one. She's never been to the club.
Okay, yeah. How old's the little one? What are the ages on the kids?
She's 21, 25, and 27.
Okay, so I feel like I've met 27 or 25. I feel like I've met people in their upper 20s.
Girl, boy, girl.
Yeah, okay, so then I've only met one then. Never mind, one. That said, you're a mom, and 8 years ago then, they're just getting out of high school, I guess?
Yeah, my little one was 13. She was just 13, and she was at the age, probably since she was 5, where she didn't want me around.
Really?
They become very, once they become teenagers, they don't want to be around you and you don't want to be around them. They're very independent and they're very nasty. You kind of have to like ride it out until they come around and start liking you again in their like 20s.
Okay.
And I took this class. I took a class with a friend of me. I took a class with a Manhattan Comedy School.
Okay. Who was your
Andy
teacher?
Engel. The first one was Karen Bergreen.
Okay, she's amazing.
Yeah. And then I took a couple, and then I took UCB. But I took it with a friend. We went kind of like as a, let's do this, let's have fun. And I loved it. I just loved it. It came very, like the first 5 minutes, I used to say the first 5 minutes came very easy to me because it was like 50 years of telling jokes.
Okay.
But then coming up with 5 minutes after that was hard. But I just loved it. And then I did my first performance, and I'm very critical of myself. And I am always like, if you know anyone that knows me, I'm always like, I look gross, I look whatever. And I saw the video and I was like, it's not so bad, which for me is like winning an Academy Award.
But that's funny though, if you're self-loathing and then you like something you did, that means something to you. Yeah, I get that. Now, we have a lot of, I think just to make you feel good, a lot of the people who listen to our show are moms.
Yeah.
I have my friend Daniela was talking about, she was a big corporate executive who kind of let it go a bit to kind of do the mom thing for a bit, doing the full-time mom thing, and now she's juggling some business. Were you a full-time mom for a bit, or were you always working?
I was a stay-at-home full-time mom.
Did you like that? Okay.
Of course.
The pause says a lot.
No, my kids, I love my kids. I love what they've become, and I loved what I did. It's hard. It is. And I joke around in the comedy that it's not, but it's, you don't have a lot of self when you're taking care of kids. It's all about them.
Yeah.
And I was a creative person. I was an educated person. I felt like there was something else that I was meant to do or needed to do that I wasn't accomplishing.
No, and I believe being a stay-at-home parent or a full-time parent or even just a parent in general is one of the most noble things. I have a lot of friends, male and female, who have put dreams on hold to be a comedian. And it's funny, though, with comedy, I have a couple of friends who really gave up great careers as comedians to be better parents. And then I know some other people who they're really crappy parents, and they're not doing great stand-up acts to the point. And that's probably part of why I never became. But you finally got your kids to the point where they were moving, and then decided to do something creative for you.
Yeah, and I don't think being home, and this is going to be very controversial, but I don't think being home for the kids is so much for the kids as it is for the parents. Like, I have friends that have 2 working parents, and their kids are freaking amazing. Yeah. Amazing. So it doesn't matter if you're working or not working for the kid. I'm home for the kids for me. And, because I love it. I love being part of it. I love seeing that and being an instrumental part. I want me to be the person that picks them up when they're crying.
Yeah.
But, big beef that I'm sort of venturing into now in the comedy world is this whole concept of women not having kids and not wanting to have kids anymore. Like Chelsea Handler is doing a whole big thing about how she was being criticized for not being a mother, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with her that, but she kind of goes and criticizes or puts down being a mother. Like I could get coffee when I could do this, I could do that. And I'm like, yeah, women can do all of that. We can. I have a comedy friend of mine who has I think 5 or 6 kids, and she has a very successful career.
Okay. Yeah. But and I guess that's my part of what I'm if this podcast started as a point of me trying to figure out what to do with my life at 40 something, I feel like my life is a box of beautiful puzzle pieces, but I've been having trouble getting it to all fit together. Like even to come here and do stand-up tonight, I gave up being on Long Island with my nephews, though I think they were kind of sick of me at a certain point. But I think we were kind of at the point where I've had my Chelsea hand where I can get my cup of coffee moment and pawn them off on somebody. But I have found that stand-up, and this is, I guess, getting to my question for you now, stand-up is also at inconvenient hours if you want to be a normal human being.
Well, and not even that, you have to travel. I think it's very hard to have a family if you do stand up.
Right. And now you're all choosing this while you have a family.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate a little bit. Like I wish I had a 9-to-5 job that was just as, interesting to me.
Well, I guess because I don't want to sound critical because I think you've made efforts to integrate it. Like, I guess first you start doing open mics, right? You start doing open mics. It's got to be weird where you skip the one night of, I don't know. I'm making up an example here. You skip one night at home to go to the Grizzly Pear with only 3 people in the audience.
Right, yeah.
There's got to be that moment of where you're sitting there like,
what the fuck am I doing?
Yes. Okay. How do you deal with that?
A couple of moments. I got to the point where I just couldn't do that anymore. It just wasn't, forget about leaving the kids and my husband at home. It was just, listen, getting on the subway, traveling downtown for like 8 minutes in front of 3 people. And then, that's what comedians do, but they'll go down there and they'll hop around and do a lot. Yeah. I just
Do you have
stopped.
a system? Do you have a plan? Like if you do an open mic, do you do 3 in a night? Or do you just now, because I want to talk about you more as a comic before I get into you as a businesswoman.
Right. Well, first, when I started, one of the things I started doing was lunchtime comedy shows.
I remember you booked me for one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the concept. Because also, in the beginning, you have to do bringer shows. You got to bring your friends. So not only did I have to go downtown and hang out, I had to bring my friends down there. So I decided to bring comedy to them at a time that was good for them.
So I guess I guess maybe I should integrate the businesswoman part of the conversation in earlier, is you found a way to bring the show business to when it was convenient for you.
And for my audience.
Yeah. And so you have this act, and it's just funny that Mrs. Maisel came out after you started doing stand-up.
Well, what happened was, as I was writing my pilot about my life, Upper East Side mom by day, stand-up comic by night, and it was done, and I was getting ready to submit it when I saw an ad for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I remember exactly where I was when it happened. I was on vacation, and I joke around in comedy. It was a good thing I was on the ground floor, because when I jumped out the window, I didn't die.
Yeah.
Which is very funny because I hate staying on ground floors, and I got in a huge fight with the hotel. I almost checked out because it creeps me out.
Yeah.
And they had nothing left. So I think I would have jumped out. I was like, that feeling when your heart kind of goes into your stomach and you feel like you're going to throw up. It made, and everyone always asks me if I watched it, and I watched one episode and I literally got sick. Nauseous. It literally, physically nauseous. I couldn't watch it because it was so similar. And, I sort of joke around about it a little bit now, but it kind of, they're very different. Like I say, hers takes place in the 50s. I'm 50. Yeah. She plays a Jewish mom. I'm a Jewish mom.
Yeah. No, and she might be it's so different that I think you could do, your story is still inspiring and unique.
Well, now that she's died.
They killed her?
No, but it's over. It's done.
Oh, thank God. I was going to say, I'm 2 seasons behind. And now you get into, and this is going to sound stupid, but there's Haxes out there, but nobody's watching Hacks. And I love Hacks.
What's funny is when I was writing it, if you remember, there was a lot of stand-up shows. There was Crashing. And, And
the one at the store.
Yeah. And when I spoke to people in the business, the line that everyone was saying was, whatever you do, don't submit a script about stand-up. Don't. Like, I don't want to see this. It's like,
Okay.
no one's gonna look at it. No one's interested in it. No one's gonna do it. And then Hacks comes out. So obviously someone looked at a script about stand-up. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and listen, I'll go crazy for a minute and just say, I don't know. I think what you're going to see with the Hollywood strike, let's see if I'm right or wrong. I think you're going to see the audience for the world fragment pretty damn quick. I'm not saying you're going to be rich, but you could still be famous. If you see anything you're around comedy at this point between TikTok and YouTube. I have a friend living in a van who has 1 million followers per episode of her show. Wow. And it's just her with less equipment than I'm using here. And she has 1 million listeners or viewers per show. I'm going to argue if you have a good story, which I think you do,
right,
you'll find a way to tell it. You just got to be aggressive about how you do it.
Yeah, well, I did. I met with some people, and someone suggested I do a one-woman show, which I did. It was The Miserable Mrs. Madison.
Okay. Which, let's go. Yeah, it's funny how I blurted it out at the beginning and didn't get it right throughout it. The Miserable Mrs. Madison. It's your one-woman show. Is it a one-woman show or stand-up? And is there a difference?
There's a difference. Well, although it's becoming gray nowadays, there are a lot of stand-up shows that are saying they're one-woman shows, or so there is a difference. I incorporated both, and what I loved it because it had more of a storyline and a theme, and it went through arcs, which stand-up does now too. But it was definitely a one-woman show. And, and it was originally going to be about, my life and in terms of like the pilot, but then I changed it because I had 2 stories I wanted to tell. Whenever I spoke to people about it, I would tell them the second story, and they loved the second story. And so I combined the 2. And the second story was about my dad, who also found a passion late in life.
What was your dad's passion late in life?
He became a sculptor, a little bit younger than me, like maybe his high 40s, very accomplished, very talented. But he was like a Navy guy, didn't go to high school. He had, he was dyslexic before they knew that you had dyslexia. He was a mechanic, so he was very good with his hands. And he found this passion late in life. And the tagline to the story, the last sentence is, "It's never too late to find your marvelous."
Okay, I love that. And that is what I need in my life right now. It's a long story. The listeners are sort of up to it. I basically gave up I gave up my psychologist to go to a different psychologist. And the new psychologist had a great piece of advice in the first session, which was you need to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
When you are 50 years old, you start doing stand-up, maybe 6 months in, let's say it. Did you have a moment in your head where you said, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life?
No.
Okay.
I knew I wanted it to go somewhere. I mean, I love stand-up, and I never thought that would ever happen in my life. And it's funny, when I step away from it for a while, I get depressed.
You do miss it.
Yeah. And then when I go on stage, it's a drug. It's like a natural drug.
Yeah. And I don't like that. I don't like what that drug does to me. And I was able to step back from it a bit in the recession, or whatever, the pandemic.
Right.
I found not like working warm up, especially on good shows, easy shows at times. The joy of having 200 people clap a day made me say, you know what, maybe I don't need a family. Right. I have enough affection for today. Right. Maybe I don't need to go home and visit the kids, the nieces, the nephews, and whoever's. So when I went cold turkey on the drug, I was okay with it. Like, I feel like, what do you want? Like, I love that line that you just said. What do you want out of it?
Well, when I originally went into it, I wanted to do my pilot. I wanted to do the pilot.
A TV pilot.
The idea was to get my life out there, and the fact that I'm funny, even though people don't think so.
Well, I hate it when you say that.
Yeah, some of my really close friends get it, and I do think, I just was having this conversation with someone about the concept of teaching comedy to people, if you can or you can't, and I do think you can teach it, but I do think it takes a certain mind to see the funny. And I have that mind. Like, I am always looking at things and seeing the funny in it, or looking at it in a way that's funny.
Yeah. Like you talk about your family in your act.
Yeah.
How do they feel about that? Actually, let's go even simpler. Let me set you up for a potential TikTok or two. What do you say about it? I know you talk about your oldest daughter's dating life. Yeah. Okay. Like, what do you say? Like,
my kids, they're the gift that keeps giving me comedy. Like, the new thing I'm doing now with my son, it's just like, we just have conversations and we start laughing out loud, and I'm like writing it down. And they're like, my son was in the car the other day and he said, my lips are chapped. And I'm like, you know why? And he said, oh, is it my bad posture?
Okay.
And so now it's a joke. I'm like, it was bad posture. Then I went, is it because you're overweight? Is it because, you don't have a girlfriend? And it was so funny at the time, because obviously he was making fun of the fact that, like, I'm always criticizing him.
Right.
And he kind of gave it back. But everything, like, one of my good jokes for my daughter was literally a text she sent me. She sent me a text. It was a text exchange. And I literally wrote back to her, this is going to be a great joke.
Okay. And
on the text exchange.
And they are okay with that.
My little one, who I make fun of the most, has never seen me perform.
Okay, see, that's how I've let my parents see me once at The View, maybe twice for my mother, and that was enough.
Right.
I don't need them there.
Right.
Your daughter has decided not to go, or is she just too young to go?
I think she just, she was a teenager. I don't think she wants to. Like, she's very funny and she should go into comedy, but she will not do anything that I do. She's still at that phase.
Good.
But yeah, I just don't think she was interested. I just don't think she wanted to see it. And I think she knew I was making fun of her a little bit.
No, and that's okay to have a barrier or two.
Like, once she made fun of me, we were out to dinner and she just like kept ripping into me, like, and making jokes at my expense. And I got mad and I said something to her and she said, Mom, you make a living out of making fun of me.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, that kind of shut me up.
And that shut you up. No. And now, so they've seen you do stand-up. It seems like at least 2 out of 3 of them are supportive.
Yeah.
And the third one's getting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's no BS that, oh my God, and I'm forgetting the exact joke, but I feel like you've alluded to your daughter being high maintenance. Right?
Yeah.
Or the character of your daughter being high maintenance.
Yeah. No, the little one is she's trouble.
Yeah. Like, I'll rephrase it. You tell me if this relates to you. I won't make fun of my mom too much because I know she'd be crushed.
Right.
Do you find there are certain things you don't touch because you don't want to crush your loved ones? I mean, I know you're a good mom and I know you're a good wife. I've seen the way your husband looks at you. You're in a good spot. Okay. I mean that in a good way. Like, sometimes you see comedians and there's this whole shtick of comedians. And my husband's an a-hole. Right. He won't pick up his socks or whatever.
Well, it's so funny. Everyone always, the first time I performed, everyone walked up to me and said, oh my God, your husband got off so easy. Because I don't make fun of him a lot because he's I'm starting to find the funny, but he's a really great guy. Not to say my kids aren't really great kids, but kids do things that are just funny because they're kids growing up and experiencing life and learning and their perspectives. The one area that I haven't been able to make fun of that I'm starting to dig into that everyone says I need to is the area in which I live, which is, a very affluent part of, yes.
Yeah, and can I say where your other house is?
Yeah.
No, that you have this is what's crazy is you have a house, and this is where I'm having trouble juggling it all. I just spent 2.5 weeks up in Maine, and I couldn't decide if I was recharging or hiding from the world.
Right.
And I know, and part of why I rent this house in Maine is I don't know if it will be around at the discount rate for which I rent it next year.
Right.
Or the year after. It just seems like a deal that won't last forever. You actually have a house in the Hamptons, and you are spending Friday night hanging out with me, doing stand-up, and it'll be a great show, and there'll be one celebrity there. John Oliver will be there. I mean, so you're around something, but you're also giving up another part. Are you giving up another part of yourself to do this?
Yeah. I mean, even though my kids are grown, they still need me a lot, and I still want to be around with them. It's like a different type of happy. Like I always say, the club's my happy place. It's kind
It
of
is.
like, it's my alone happy place. It's my thing. I just love being there. But there's nothing better, like nothing better than me having my entire family together under one roof. It's like a joy that is a different type of joy.
Gotcha. Now, speeding through your career a bit, you're doing these, mom shows in the afternoons and whatnot. Pandemic comes, all of comedy shuts down, and you kept promoting the West Side Comedy Club, which you don't own.
No.
Do you own the club, the Word West Side Comedy Club, or that's
No.
You are. So what's your title there?
Well, I gave myself a title, managing partner.
Okay.
I basically run it now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no one else there. It's like
I
for
know
all intents
some of
and
the other
purposes.
owners, and I haven't seen them in years. I love them.
They've moved. They're not involved anymore.
Right.
And I do have I have a stake in the club.
Okay.
And it was my baby when so this is what happened.
I want to hear that story.
So I did the lunchtime comedy shows, and then I started doing lunchtime mics with another girl who was also a mom, again, to do it at a time so that we could do it when we could stay home. And it was a Friday mic, which I still do to this day. It was a feedback mic, and like a lot of really great comedians who've started in that mic have now gone on to bigger and better things.
Now, for those who don't know, what's a feedback mic?
It's a comedian will go up there and do 5 minutes, and the other comedians will give them advice or feedback and suggestions on how to improve that joke. And it was very popular, and people loved it. And then I ended up moving the lunch and the mics to West Side Comedy Club.
Gotcha.
And then the new talent person there left, and they asked me to do the new talent. So I started producing shows there that became very successful. And I ended up doing more mics. And then the booker left over the pandemic. And then they asked me to do the booking. And then after the pandemic, the owners left. So then I was just running it.
Right. So one thing that I like about your success story that I've been unwilling to do is you started creating stages for yourself to perform on, at least with the mics and the rearrange, the lunchtime comedy and stuff.
Yeah, well, you know Zarna Garg.
Yeah.
She started, I got her on stage for the first time at West Side.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
she came to West Side. I got her on stage, came to my feedback mics. We ended up doing a show together called Hinjus, which was very successful.
And just for the folks who don't know Zarna Garg, go follow her on Instagram. Obviously, you already will have followed Felicia, but Zarna Garg is an Indian mom. Mm-hmm. She's the one with the 5 kids you were just alluding to, right?
No,
different
she's
one.
got 3. Yeah,
but Zarna's got 3 kids, and if you have family from another place, which I do, I don't know, just her mom humor just appeals to me more, and I think she's a hit with everybody who's of Indian descent too.
Everyone. She's amazing.
She's 1 million viewers on TikTok.
I mean, she from day one had her voice. But the reason why I bring her up, because she says this, and a couple of other moms and older women that I know in this business, is people aren't looking for us. No one's like looking to book us.
Right.
It's like, oh, what do I need? Oh, I need a 50-year-old Jewish woman. There are a lot of those out there. We had to be resourceful, and we had to find ways to get stage time and get a presence and be out there. It was, it's a young person's market out there.
It is. And it's the time that they put in and whatnot. So you had to make an effort to be seen. Mm-hmm. What goes into that? I mean, it sounds stupid, but like the shows, I remember the early shows of you, I remember being there. And I remember there was one where I was stalling. We were hoping the New York Times reporter was going to come see you.
Oh, that was like a nightmare.
And it was. And then you brought a bunch of friends to see you for that nightmare.
Right. Yeah.
And my recollection of the day was you booked a good couple of people. There was a New York Times person who wanted to do a profile on you.
So I'll tell the funny story.
Yeah, tell the
about
funny
this.
story.
So I had this woman, a reporter, maybe for a year, wanting to do a story on my life.
Right.
And she would had come up with the best excuses to cancel. Like she would say, I want to come to the show. I want to come to the show. I want to come. And she would just like cancel. And one day, she said, I'm definitely coming. And they had a photographer. And at that point, it was like, I was kind of like giving up on the lunches. So I made it my birthday party. Like I invited all my friends or whatever. And then right before the show, she cancels. And I'm sitting on the back stairs of the club, literally like in tears, sobbing, texting her and texting my friend, oh my God, I can't believe this, blah, blah, blah. And then I take a picture of myself and I sent it to my friend. I said, what the hell am I doing with my life? And then I texted it to the New York Times reporter by mistake.
Oh my God.
And then I tried to cover it up, but then I think she felt so bad that she ended up coming, but the article never happened.
Okay. And now I find my resilience dropping off. How do you move forward from a what the hell am I doing with my life moment? How do you get back on that stage again? Was it the drive that got you back up again?
Yeah, I kind of thought I would stop performing recently. I just run the club and do some other things.
You alluded to that.
And so I took like a month off and I really missed it. It's like a part of me now. So I feel like it's just, there's no other way to describe it. And I have those same feelings as you. I feel like there's got to be a better way to make me happy than getting on stage. Yeah. But for now, it's my happy place.
Okay. I'm loving talking to you. Normally, I only do a 20-minute podcast, and I'm loving talking to you and becoming a better friend with you so much that I think I've missed two important questions that I want to get in. If we get going, okay, fine. But let's start one. People who realize a dream late in life, like you're talking about your dad. And I know I keep talking about family impact in your art, but what advice do you have for somebody who finds a new or crazy dream at our age?
Well, we'll take a step back and say that, my parents raising me, they were poor. I grew up in the lower, uneducated. So they raised their 3 kids to be doctors and lawyers. There was no creativity. Okay. None of us are doctors and lawyers.
None of them. None.
Not one. They get one. Okay. We're all, and I hated that because I was creative. My real dream was to be a Broadway dancer or a fashion designer, whatever one
wanted. And for years you modeled.
Yeah, I modeled a little bit, but
okay.
But so I raise my kids now to follow their dreams. Like I don't want them to do anything other than what their hearts really desire. I think that's so important. And so they're going to grow up to be struggling artists and going to raise their kids to be doctors and lawyers.
Well, and it's funny now, but your husband does he offset that? Because your husband's what, in finance or something?
Yeah, he offsets it. We're like kind of like a yin and yang on that.
Okay.
But like I tell my kids all the time, and the one thing that I do tell them is, don't wait till you're 50 to find your dreams. Find it now. And the only way to find it is, the age-old Nike commercial, just do it. Like my dad, he found his passion by mistake. My mom wanted to go to an art class,
right,
and she didn't want to go alone, so she dragged him along. And he was sitting in the art class, and the teacher felt sorry for him, so he gave him some clay, and he proceeded to make a perfect bust of my mom. Like it was like looked just like her.
He just had a natural gift.
He just sat there and and the teacher was in awe.
And what was your dad's trade before that?
He was a mechanic.
Okay, so you had good hands.
Yeah, he was good with his hands. He had great and high. I don't have great mouth coordination right now, but hand coordination.
Hand-eye coordination, okay.
And a part of the story also in The Miserable Mrs. Madison is he ended up getting Parkinson's. And he lost his ability to sculpt. It was like one of the first things we started to see. So the story goes into, he was a tough man and he was a tough father. And like at the end, I realized, when he was on his deathbed, like how much he accomplished with the little that he had and how much I appreciated him and how I wished I had told him more often is the end of the story.
Okay.
But getting back to...
No, hang on. Let's pause and appreciate that. How many years did he do sculpting?
He did it for 20 years.
Got 20
He
years
was
in
on
it.
the cover of the New York Times with one of his statues. He's won numerous awards.
So he really was not just a sculptor, but a successful one.
Yeah, I mean,
As a sculptor can
yeah,
be.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he was very gifted, and by chance he discovered it. So that's what I tell my kids, and I tell everyone out there: just try it, even if you don't think you're going to like it. You never know.
Yeah.
And how horrible. Like if my dad went to like school and a school that taught art or was exposed to it, he could have been a very successful sculptor. And like, I think if I would have started younger, who knows what I could have accomplished.
You know, and I'm going to so I'm going to say yes for him, maybe not for you, for comedy. And, you know, the difference between your art and your father's art is, I think your life experience is part of your art.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think your life experience is part of your art, where you have kid stories, you have a certain amount of frustration. And if you were 20 and, you know, I'm a model, I'm a this, and look at me. Like, there's nothing that annoys me more than models who do stand-up or good. I hate attractive people who are doing podcasts, TikToks, and stand-up. But that said, you've had a few successes in your life, you know, and arguably there's no way you're a wife and a mother without having a few heartbreaks along the way.
Yeah.
And and I'll say, I don't know. I think that living your life, or maybe that's the next thing is, what do you want out of this? I guess, or you haven't answered the real question is, if my audience is now predominant, or if my audience is 60% women over 40, and then a few guys over 40 who are in transition, what advice do you have for them? I mean, because you're also now not just a brilliant comedian, you're also a brilliant business person running one of the top 3 clubs in the city, I'll say right now.
Right. Well, I had a podcast for a while that we're still working with, doing something with the company. It's called Empty Nesters Podcast.
Right.
And it was targeted to women like me. I did it with my college roommate. M for Madison, T for Tepper, Empty Nesters.
Okay.
And that's exactly that's exactly what we did. We interviewed people and we tried to give people the resources on how to adjust to this new life and possibly pivot into doing something else.
Okay.
And the one thing that I learned, that everyone says you could learn anything by Googling it or YouTube. There's nothing out there that you can't do. And we were just talking about, you know, Chat GPT, you know, the AI.
Powerful tools.
You could do anything with it. So, you know, I learned how to do everything, you know, when I was 50. I didn't know. You know, I'm doing now Google advertising. I'm doing Google advertising now.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I mean, I feel like in some ways I'm dumbing you down just calling you a comedian. No, because you're not just saying, hey, I have a show, everybody show up. You're doing Google advertising. You set up an online store to sell tickets. You're attracting celebrities to the room. You rightfully made fun of me or busted my chops for calling the comedy club a club in the basement of a taco joint. But you're right, it's premier. There's great food there. There's great entertainment there. It's not just a place that does barbecued wings around the corner, which actually they don't even sell the wings anymore. But you know what I'm saying? But the point is...
they were too messy.
Yeah, they are. Honestly, food is hard, but you found a way to create a business that supports your art.
Well, you know, I think... in a way, moms are underrated because they used to joke around at nursery school that they were the best run bake sales in the world.
Yeah.
Because they get all these, we're like really, the skills that you learn being a mom of how to juggle and manage and having like all these different things and being able to do so many different things, that is really comes in handy. And that's why I think all of these moms now that are late in life doing... When I went to my first comedy class, I can never forget this. It was a hosting class, and the younger comedians there, they were like afraid of their shadows. They were so insecure. They didn't really know what they were doing. They were confused, asking questions. They had such a, and I did too at that age.
Right.
But at my age, you have like a level of confidence that kind of like you said, life experience that you've gained over years and years and years of living life.
Right.
And you get to a certain point where you're like, you don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of having those skills and being able to do a lot of different things. I mean, I remember the first time I showed up at West Side to do one of my shows and I had a typed list. They were like very impressed that it was typed.
Yeah. No, and there's something to be said too about grown-up energy in the immature world. Actually, do you have IDGAF energy? I don't give a fuck energy?
Not a lot, but I will say, just to go back in defense of the younger people, you know, I don't have the disadvantage of also having to work a full-time job. You know, these young people, you got to give them credit.
Yeah.
They work full-time jobs during the day because they
Yeah.
need the money. And then they have to do the comedy at night. So it's harder for them. And it's for me, since I have more of a full time to do it, even though I'm not,
Yeah.
supporting myself, it was a little bit easier for me in that respect.
Now, you've turned the West Side Comedy Club into a machine. It's, I mean, what are we up to, 6 nights a week at a comedy?
7 now. Yeah.
7, okay. I mean, from 2 at the beginning of after the pandemic.
Yeah.
I used to book comedy shows at one point in my life. I always found that for every one friend I made, I alienated 2. Yeah.
That's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah.
I'm like maybe 1 to 5.
Well, but listen, you have a system of you book, you book me once a month and then you throw me other great bones. And now that you know how close I live, I'm sure I'll be booked a lot more often for last minute stuff, which is honestly fits my anxiety level. But I feel like when you have something,
Right.
you're in that weird spot of you have to alienate, you have to crush some dreams, or say that something's not right for you.
That's the worst part of my job.
And I'll give you the other one that might not be right. Even the people you're giving to, you may not be giving to enough in their minds.
Right. Well, I think that I came from doing stand-up gives me a different perspective on my job than other people, and I think I'm a little bit more understanding. But what I remember when I started doing stand-up and I would get up on stage and they would laugh at me and I'd be like, why are you booking me every night? Why am I not headlining?
Yeah.
And that's how every comedian thinks.
And I think you have to be. Are you like that?
I was like
As a
that.
comic?
I was like that when I started out.
Yeah.
I remember I used to yell at Andy, like, how come you're not giving me, why am I not famous yet?
Yeah, okay.
And like, I try to explain to the comedians that if you get on stage and people are not laughing, you're in the wrong career. You know, you're getting on stage, they're laughing at you. That's great. You notice the difference when a pro gets on after a beginner. And the difference is, and what I try to explain to them, it's the decibel of laughter and the frequency of laughter. Everyone can make people laugh, but you'll have a pro go on after a beginner, and you could hear the laughter is just louder, more booming, and more frequent. And that's sort of where you have to get to. I think the other reason why, it's doing well, and also you asked earlier why I continued over the pandemic, is I really care about the comedians. They used to call me their momager. I truly care, and they know and they trust me. They know I'm not like in it for the money, that I really truly want to make it a great place for them and a great place for them to grow. And I care about them. So I try when I talk to them to explain that. And some people don't want to hear it, and some people do. But it's really, really hard. I also try to get as many comedians through the club as possible. A, because we're a neighborhood club and we do get a lot of repeats.
I'm noticing that.
Yeah. And B, I want to give as much opportunity to as many different people as possible.
Right.
And so the amount of spots that I have, I would say maybe now it's up to like 120 a month.
A month? Okay.
I might have 400 comedians on my list that I want to book.
Okay.
So I have to just rotate people through. And so I do have the people that are like, how come I'm not getting more spots? And I say to them, listen, no one gets more than 1 spot a month.
Yeah.
Maybe every once in a while because there's a last minute dropout, or, sometimes I need like a strong closer and there are not a lot of those. But I try to rotate as many people through as possible.
Yeah.
To give everyone the opportunity and just to have the variety and the diversity.
And I'm adding a question here. How do you handle having those, did the hard conversations bother you? And if they don't, how do you let it not affect you? Like if Bob, if you have to go tell, like, yeah, like, I mean, it's got to suck to be the booker at times and be a comic.
Yeah, you get some, like, I got an Instagram message from someone once that said, don't tell me you're one of those bookers that ghost people.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, that's a good way to ingratiate yourself to me.
Yeah.
And I responded because I'm nice, and I try to respond to everyone. And I said, listen, I'm really busy. I have a lot of stuff going on, and I just don't have time to respond to everyone. I'll get to it as I can.
Is being a good business person essential to being a good artist? Because I think you have a good business sense. Did was your dad a good businessman?
I think it helps.
I think
it helps. You know, there's that age-old expression, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
I like that.
Yeah. So you can
talent beats hard work. Wait.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But there are people, and I know people like that are extremely talented. They just can't get their act together. They like, what's the word? They get into their own
head.
Yeah, or they're their own obstacle. And then I know people that aren't as talented, that are super hardworking business people and out there, and you know, they also say they say that when recruiters recruit athletes, they never recruit the best one, because the one that's naturally talented, because they don't really know what it's like to work hard. The one that wasn't naturally talented is the one that really dug deep and went extra and worked really hard, because they had to put in the extra effort, and they knew how to grind and work and do the extra, whatever it took to get it done. And I find that sometimes with talent.
Wow. All right. We started this question 3 times, and this is the one I want to end on. What do you want out of all this?
Happiness.
Is it that simple that you just want a feeling, or is there a goal of I want to sell my one-person show to Netflix, or is it I want the club to be better than the Stand and the Cellar?
It is better than the Stand,
but you know what I mean. But more. Is actually no. Let's say that easily. Do you want your club to be the most recognized club in the city or the country? I mean, there was a moment where if there were podcasts 20 years ago, someone might have asked Mitzi Shore the same question.
Right.
You know, Mitzi Shore was another one who kind of, I think, started later in life, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. She's a role model of mine.
Is she?
Yeah. I loved the show I'm Dying Up Here.
Yeah.
And I loved that character that was supposedly her.
I've been watching more of the documentary and just hearing people talk about her.
Yeah.
Is that your vision? And listen, there's also the answer could be, which is sort of where I'm at right now, is I haven't answered my shrink's question of what do you want to do with the rest of your life? But do you have what do you want out of this?
I think I've learned, talking about all the things that you said over the years, that, you know, there's always going to be someone more successful out there. There's always going to be someone out there with like more whatever. So using that as a level of success or of happiness is not the right way to go about it, you know, because maybe we will be better than, you know, whatever. Yeah. There's always going to be something else. I'm never going to be, you know, and if you get to the top, that has its own problems. So I like to just I'm trying to have joy, which was really hard for me because I was obsessing about where is this going, because I don't really think it's going anywhere. Just enjoying the process and enjoying where I am and doing the best that I can do now.
All right. I think you might be the perfect guest. Yeah. Long. We went long. And actually, if you are still watching, do me a favor. Make sure you comment on the YouTube, comment on the Instagram clips. Felicia, I should have done this at the beginning. Where should they find you and the club?
They can find me at the club.
Well, online.
I know.
Okay.
Felicia Madison Comedian is Instagram. I also have Facebook. I also have TikTok. I also have Twitter, but I just can't keep track of all of them. Instagram is the only one that I really
is the one you care about.
Yeah,
good
for now. And I'm either at the club, at my house, or on Instagram.
Gotcha. And for me, folks, show love where love can be shown. Very, very special magic mirror. This is where I shout out the viewers and listeners. Tara Marie Segundo, hello, we see you.
Hey, Tara.
I see Judy, who came from Reno, Nevada to the West Side Comedy Club. I see Marianne, who came all the way from New Jersey to see me when I performed at the West Side Comedy Club. I see Franklin up there in the Bronx. You have not been down in a long time, man, and I miss you. And that's about it, folks. So new podcasts every Monday and Wednesday. And good night, Upper West Side.